All right, we're going to get rolling here. All right, hello everyone. My name is Jamie Riddell. I'm a member of the Landscape Ontario COVID-19 Task Force, and I also an employee of SiteOne Landscape Supply. And we're here today to help our members at Landscape Ontario navigate through a new challenge, using video services to onboard and to train all of our new employees. We've all had to lean on these services a lot more in the past year and through the last year, and we are hoping to provide you with some helpful tips and tricks to increase your engagement and effectiveness in delivering online training. We've invited Laura Shartle here to join us today. She is from SiteOne Landscape Supply. Laura is the Director of Talent and Organizational Development, and she drives all of the internal talent development programs at SiteOne Landscape Supply. Prior to 2020, all of these programs, well, the majority of these programs were delivered in an in-person environment. Quickly realizing in early 2020 that that was probably not a reality for 2021, SiteOne recognized that we could not stop or slow the progress in our talent development programs, as these are critical steps in the partnerships between our teams and our customer success. That is when Laura and her team took all of our training into a virtual environment. Taking on a new environment, the new virtual environment required us to develop a new training program for our actual trainers. And that's why we've invited Laura here today, is to show us some of the tips and tricks that she's used in our programs to better enhance engagement, effectiveness, and overall productivity in the online training environment. So Laura, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. All right, let me start by sharing my screen. There we go. Well, thank you so much for that nice introduction. It's an interesting, time, and this is an interesting session too, because I want to help everyone with some tips and tricks for facilitating training or meetings. But I also kind of want to demonstrate some of those. So it's sometimes a fine line between you being a participant of this call and then turning around and being a facilitator on your next call. So I've tried to call some of those instances out here. So stay tuned for those as we go through. But before we get there, let's go ahead and do some quick introductions. So Jamie did a great job, and I thank him for doing that. And I wanted just to share, I've been doing teaching and training since high school, but we won't say what year that was. But I do share that I did something called Homework Hotline, which is where we were on a local, TV channel, and students would call in with their math problems. And the reason that I bring that up is that when you're doing, I couldn't see who the students were. And so there wasn't a lot of feedback and interaction, and you have to adjust and pivot your techniques to make sure everyone's engaged, which brings me to this time, right? So thank you for a lot of you who have turned on your camera so I can see expressions. I truly appreciate that. And I want to help you with some different ways that you can continue to get reactions from your students or even your meeting participants as we go forward. So that's a little bit about me. And I would really like to get to know something about you. Because of the number of the people in the session and the format that we have here, doing a full icebreaker would not necessarily, we'd spend the whole time talking about other things rather than the content here. So I'd like to use one of our features to allow us to get to know each other better. So here's one of my examples, and I tried to put them all in green for you as the facilitator as we go through, that I really do recommend some sort of icebreaker when you're training or teaching, just to start off kind of on a good note there. And at the bottom of your screen, you should have a chat window. Oops. So I'm hoping you can engage in the chat. and tell me something that is always in your refrigerator. So if you would use the chat window and share with me something that is always in your refrigerator. Oh, eggs. Jamie changes it up every time. I was expecting blueberries. Ooh, lots of orange juices. Yum. Uh-oh, I don't know what some of these words are. Do I dare ask Peter, what's a strub? I'm from the States. Is that a Canadian thing? Don't laugh at me. I see some of you laughing at me. Peter, can you take yourself off mute? Maybe I can. Jamie, can you help him come off mute? Pickles.
I'm here for you, Laura. Strub's pickles are the best pickles ever.
Oh, so strub is a pickle.
Strub's
Now, are they dill pickles or are they sweet pickles?
dill pickles, full sours, and it has to be specifically Strub's. That's all.
I agree with
Well,
you.
Tony, that might have to be my payment then. Because I love a dill pickle, so I might need to get turned on to these strub pickles.
And
Consider it done.
a lot of people don't know about it. They're only in the refrigerator section.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I normally buy mine out of the refrigerator, so I love pickles, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, and everybody seems to say they're the best in the chat too. Oh, that's great. Linda's very healthy with her spinach, lettuce, nice.
Hey, Laura,
All
just
right.
to throw you a curveball, Paul Williamson, is that milk in a bag or a jug? Because Americans don't get milk in bags.
A bag. Interesting. No, I've never heard of that. Yes, ours normally, yeah, they come in cartons or jugs in a bag. Do you buy the bag at the food store, Jamie, or is it delivery?
No, food, it's, you have an option. There's not a lot of jugs left around anymore. It's mostly bag and carton.
Wow, interesting. Okay, well, good. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. So Tony will be in touch. But that's, one way to use the chat. Of course, there are lots of ways to use it, but, when thinking about doing an icebreaker, that's certainly what I would recommend here. One thing also that you might want to consider with your teams is really getting oriented with the mute and the video buttons. They should be in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. And a lot of times, someone will say, well, I'm talking and, maybe they're on mute, or like today, I was telling Scott that I chose to call in and use my headphones and phone rather than use my computer audio. And these are the buttons that you would choose for that. And I like to show those buttons early. You guys have really caught on and helped me in my pickle crisis, jump in and tell me what's going on there. But these are two key buttons that you might want to show as well. And just so you know, as the facilitator or the host, you can control the muting of the participants. So you really have a lot of control here. So we chose today to have everybody mute on entry. So if you have a large group, sometimes it's easier just to mute. And that way they're not distracted. But we also sometimes need to show people how to take off mute. And there's also an opportunity to turn on beep on entry or off. I find that a lot of times it is distracting to have the beeps on entry, so we took those off. And all those options, and I know you don't see the facilitator side or the host side right now, and I think Scott's gonna do a recording, but if you'd like to, some of these slides, certainly you're more than welcome to do that. So I'm trying to show both sides here, not only as a participant today, but give you some tips as a facilitator. All right. So there's two goals that I really want to accomplish today. One is facilitating and teaching with technology, and then also making sure that the audience is engaged in learning. So let's figure out this technology, which can be scary, and then let's also try to keep the audience engaged as we go through. I'm really lucky today because I'm one of 3 hosts. So Scott's on the line to help me, and also Jamie Riddell is here to help. If you have larger groups, you know, it's sometimes helpful to have a partner or a co-host in here. And so let's see how they help out in a situation like this. Because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a quick poll. So in a minute, Jamie will actually launch a poll for us, because I really want to understand what is causing some of the anxiety around using some of these new tools. It does make you a little anxious, and I was a little nervous for this call, but why do you think that is? So Jamie, do you mind launching the first poll? And you should be able to see that on your screen. And then if you could choose one of the answers here. So once you go ahead and answer, we'll give everybody a couple minutes to do that. And then when we end the poll, we'll actually share the results with you. I think you can choose more than one too. All right, there's a couple of you who haven't answered. So we'll go to maybe 50 seconds, Jamie, and then we'll end the poll. All right. Nice. So Jamie was able to, that whole time, to start the poll, stop the poll, and share the results. So it looks like really there's just overall uncertainty, and, you know, but across the board is really, how do we become familiar with the technology, and how do we keep everybody engaged? So I'm hoping we can, you know, continue to work through those 2 goals that we had here today through this presentation. All right. Just as a side note, if you are a facilitator, the polls need to be set up beforehand and saved in the meeting, and that's done in the administrative side. So that's how we actually got that to feature through. So let's figure this out together. So one of the goals of training is we always want someone to feel comfortable, right? And we want to build a relationship. And we used to walk around the room, we used to make small talk, we facilitate an icebreaker. But now what we're doing is we're scanning cameras and backgrounds and making small talk. I mean, you know, that's where I'd picked up, you know, where is Jamie today? Or I saw Tony was somewhere different, you know, and then being able to have a modified icebreaker. So those are some of the tips and things we've got to do now to help make everybody feel comfortable and build that relationship. Another goal is we want the participants to feel confident with the technology. And in the past, if they all came into a meeting room or they all came in the classroom, it really wasn't an issue. But now we have to take the time to orient users with the technology components. So we've already done chat, we've done polling, you guys did great at those. And then have participants, you know, complete some small tasks that don't have consequences. And I'll show you a little bit what I mean by that here in just a second. We also want you as facilitators to feel confident with the technology, right? We used to have to worry about power and projectors and pointers, but now we need to practice and be prepared before the session. And, you know, I would recommend just pairing up with someone to test. For this session, you know, poor Scott and Jamie have had to test with me a couple times. You know, I involved my husband just because I wanted to be prepared for you all and the questions there. And, you know, even this morning I was like, well, where was that feature again? So it does take a little bit of time to prepare, and, you know, really, hopefully, you know, we're all in the same situation. So hopefully you would cut me a little slack if I couldn't find something right away, and everybody feels the same way for you. So please don't feel, you know, that it has to be perfect. Once you do it once or twice, you really get the hang of where the buttons are and how to engage, but practicing is definitely key. And then one thing we really have to focus on and be specific about is how do you keep the participants engaged and learning? So before, we'd walk around the room and make sure someone wasn't doodling or on their phone, or we would have flip charts and things like that. So now we need to be real good with an agenda, with our flow, determine touch points, check for understanding. So I'm going to show you how that works through here, and determine ways to interact with the participants. And I want to show you a couple more ways here today. And there are also breakout rooms and other more sophisticated things that we can do in here. So there's lots to explore. So let's go a little bit more with the technology piece and setting those ground rules and showing everybody how to use the screens. So, I did tell you that everybody, was on mute. You can use the chats. Hopefully Jamie is looking at the chat, seeing if there's any questions, and you can raise your hand if you have a question or put it in the chat. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see some reactions down there. So I would like to have everybody maybe raise their hand or do one of the other reactions. Oh, some clapping, some celebratory. Let me see, get a good look at all of you. Thanks, Julie, thumbs up. Oh, Margot with the heart, I love it. I love it. Oh, Cindy too, good. All right, so there are some different, reactions that you can use in there, and that's helpful if you have to ask a question or if you have to go through some of the different pieces in there. And, there is a place where the facilitator can lower all the hands. So sometimes you want to lower them and, start all over again. But these reactions are good. If I were to say, are you, do you have a birthday this year? And I want you to put a thumbs up if you have a birthday this year, right? And then you guys can ask some of those kinds of questions in there and get those immediate responses, right? So this is how we can keep our participants engaged. The experts say 3 to 5 minutes, which is a lot. So you have to kind of build some of these pieces in. So great job. All right. So we did a little bit of facilitating with technology. I want to also talk about how do you ensure participants are learning and they're engaged. And, it's a lot of what I'm sure you've heard before. So you need to prepare them for what you're going to tell them. So I told you we were going to review 2 things today: facilitating with technology and facilitating and teaching so the audience is engaged. Then we need to tell them, which is what's going on right now, and then tell them what you told them, all right? But there's a couple more things here. We want to make sure we check for understanding. So you can do this by asking questions directly to people. You have to feel that out on your audience. Sometimes that's very uncomfortable for people. Or if you ask as a group, they can certainly put things in the chat like we did before, or raise their hand and we can get them into the group as well. And as a facilitator, sometimes it makes you so nervous if there's silence, but don't be afraid of a little silence. Give some people, some people need a minute to gain either the courage or to compose their thoughts of a question. And I put this other hint in here. Someone had asked me this: what do you do if the same person keeps answering all the questions and kind of hogging the time? Something that you might want to say is, I'd really like to hear from the thinkers in the group, because that person's probably, really quick on the go there, and it might be nice if we heard from some of the other ones. So those are some of the ways to check for understanding. All right, and one thing that we can do is really look at annotations. Let me show you what that what that involves. So at the top of your window, you should have a view options, and you should be able to annotate. And what I want you to do is take your arrow on there, and I would like you to put your name next to, do you like, Jamie likes dogs. Sushi, yes or no? Let's see where some of you are falling out here. Lots of dog people. And there are other tools under there. If you wanted to try a text tool, you can write on there and it won't show up until you click away. Some of you have found the stamps already. Nice. But this is a way that you can gauge from the audience, you know, some of their preferences and allow them to participate right in the class. I like the heart stamps too. Not me. Who said not me? For sushi. Smiley faces. Love it. Love it. Oh, dogs. Lots of dogs. Some cats. All right. All right. Now, I want you to watch. Oh, let me just show you here. Oops, I've got my wrong tool in my mouse. I wanted to. The facilitator can turn on and off the annotation. So there's lots of power to being the host, that if you all get out of control, that there's lots of things that we can do to cut off annotation, or just a side note, you can put someone who's rowdy back in the waiting room. So lots of options to explore, but I do like the annotation and I use it a lot in my training. And these are the ones that I was saying, you know, have people participate in something with no consequences. So this is fun. It doesn't matter if you like cats or dogs, right? But then, you know, as you show them this, then they get comfortable with it. And then as time goes on, you might have them, you know, pick the right answer. Or, you know, I know we've had irrigation plots, you know, and point to, you know, one of the parts there. So lots of options to use this. But let me show you. Do you see I went to the next screen and all the annotations are still there? So that's something that you'll have to kind of notice. As a facilitator, I can clear all the drawings. So that's what I did. And now when I move to the next slide, here's my note there too. But what I would like you to do is pick a stamp. And I would like you, because the stamps you can use more than once, and I want you to indicate on here what makes you most anxious about facilitating virtually. Yes, I see a lot, keeping everyone's attention and the engagement. I really encourage the cameras. You know, it's difficult being on this side, not seeing the reactions, not seeing the faces. That's one way to do it. Keeping these kind of activities going where they can participate, that helps with the attention and the engagement. And those have to be, you know, planned. They have to be very purposeful in there. Well, I'm so happy to see no one chose you in the technology. I love it. But our participants sometimes are not used to this kind of technology as well. So sometimes it is a little bit of a walkthrough. And once you do it a couple times, of course, they're going to pick up on it too. So being able to show them some of the key pieces as they go through would be great. All right, great job there. Now I'm going to clear all the drawings. There we go. So now it's not stuck. Oops, that was me. I have to, as a facilitator, you have to change back over to a mouse. All right. So some tips to help reduce the anxiety. You know, it's really the practice. And I don't want you to think that, you know, you have to practice for hours on end. I think Scott and Jamie and I went in and, you know, we did maybe, well, if Jamie would have stopped talking, we would have done 15. No, I'm teasing, but it was 30 minutes, right? And, you know, we just tried some things and allowed that to happen. Some things that I would encourage you to practice with is sharing your content. So, you know, you'll notice I had some animation in there. I had some, you know, how the slides went in, playing videos. You want to, you know, check that out. How does that work? PowerPoint with multiple screens. So I have 2 screens up. What if you have 3? How do you share them? Those kind of things. It's just running through it. It's pretty user friendly, and we're using Zoom, of course. And then you'll have to be very purposeful with, you know, how you're going to keep associates or participants engaged, you know, and how you're going to keep them interacting with the polls and the annotate, and who doesn't love a reaction, right? And then just have some fun. You know, we're all learning here, and, you know, listen, they, you know, I think everybody's very forgiving. They will be very forgiving. And I would encourage cameras if you get that chance. All right. So just to recap, remember I told you what I was going to tell you, and then I told you, and now here's our recap. So spend some time up front with the tools and sharing them with your associates. Set the guidelines on how you're going to communicate. So, hey, raise your hand, put something in chat. It's nice to have, if you have a larger group, you know, Jamie going into the chat and, you know, answering any questions or looking for raised hands, those kind of things. But if you don't, it's manageable on your own, for sure. And then to keep them engaged, some of those things, and, you know, the check for understanding and, you know, the polls. I think those interaction points can be really, you know, fun for the user too, and different if they haven't participated in it. There are lots more things out there for you to explore, maybe whiteboards or breakout rooms. But I think just getting the basics like we've shown today will be great, and you will definitely dazzle your participants. All right, so one final poll here. We would like some feedback on the session today. So Jamie, if you don't mind launching the next poll, hopefully you learned something new, and you have the choices here. Oops, Jamie, do we need to do poll number 2? Oh, there we go. So maybe you learned something new, you'll use some of these tips, or maybe this was all very common to you, which is fine too. I'm hoping that we delivered something new, and we appreciate certainly your time today and your patience and your attention. It looks like we have about 5 more people who haven't answered. All right, should we kill it at 50 again?
Yeah.
All right. And we'll share the results. Nice, nice. I'm so glad that you'll use some of the tips. So for Jamie and Scott, if you need a copy of this presentation and would like to send it out, I would be completely fine with that. There's no pride of ownership there. Let me pull up the chat. Is there anyone, I'm looking at the chats and I'll stop sharing so I can see some of your faces too. Any raised hands or chat, any questions here at all? Oh, I didn't get to show you my last slide, which said thank you, but before that, if you had any questions, I'm certainly open to answering any of them.
One thing
All right, well, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, one thing I'd like to share before we say, before we get into the Q&A portion and such is, you know, we did probably I would say about 30 to 40 hours per person of online training in the month of January and the first couple weeks of February. And a lot of it was very download based training. It was vendor related. It was, various different topics. It was more speaking necessarily in some cases than it was training. And our last training session was one that my entire leadership team and our sales organization did with Laura. And I can tell you, with using the tools that she has just demonstrated to us today, the content was excellent as well. But I can tell you that people begged for more time with her and were dying to get off the line with a lot of the other trainings. And so I did go around and I asked a lot of the attendees what it was. And, a lot of it is content, but the other 50% of it is keeping people engaged and being creative and changing things up and not, death by PowerPoint. So I do really encourage you to take into consideration a lot of the things that she's mentioned here. And the other part I would say is practice. And it's not a ton of time, but it certainly is a really beneficial thing to do, especially when you want to share a video and then the audio doesn't work, or you go to set the second poll and you forgot to close the first one. I didn't do that. But definitely practice and walk through these things, because it is tremendously valuable to your effectiveness in delivering the training. And, a lot of the training we're going to be doing as an industry this year for our associates is going to be safety training online. And, the 3 to 5 minute checks for engagement and ask for understanding. When it comes to a topic as important as safety, it is really important to ask for those double checks and using the reaction buttons and chatting and answer. So I really do think there's a lot to be learned here, and there's a lot to benefit not only us but our teams. So yeah, that's all I had. Is there any other questions? I saw some things come in on the chat down here. Thank you, Laura, from Tony and Alan. Does anybody have any other training experiences or stories they'd like to share, or questions they'd like to ask?
James, I can add a little bit to it. Again, it was a valuable tool for us as we went through the winter and came in the springtime. Just even onboarding new team members, getting comfortable as interviews. We hosted quite a few of our interviews on this platform. So again, from delivery standpoint, being comfortable with the platform to get the same value out of it when you're interviewing new candidates. And then we've used the platform to onboard our new team members, introduce them to other team members virtually. So it's super important that you have, as Laura suggested, those interactive components that really allow people that are in a different environment, your existing team, as well as the new hires, how to interact and feel comfortable sharing with others who they are. So kind of putting some exercises together, some polls, certainly lightens it up a little bit. But next to safety and some of the other things, it's been a valuable social tool. I think companies, when they sometimes always can't get together face to face.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sometimes when videos are shared, the audio doesn't come on. Do you know why that is? Is that a administrator thing?
Yes and no. When you go to share a video, and I'm trying to find it in here, you want to make sure that you also share your computer audio. Sometimes that's where we get off track a little bit. So I can find that feature in Zoom. A little bit more familiar where it is in WebEx, but I'll find it here in Zoom for you.
Actually,
share the video.
I have used a video before on a presentation, and there is an advanced button that you have to click on, and you click on the advanced button, you click on video, and then you click on the video that you want to show, and it comes through, and the audio comes through very well. If you just click on the video without the advanced video button, the audio doesn't come through as well.
Okay.
I found that out by trial and error.
Trial and error. Yes, Margot's a great resource. She said she was using the polls and everything. So yes, it's an extra little click that you need to do in the advance. Thank you for helping us there.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I found practicing beforehand, like you suggested, was essential. So I'm a master gardener, and we've done some seminars for up to 300 people during this pandemic, and so I had to learn on the fly.
Yeah,
It's a great tool. It's a wonderful tool. The annotations, though, those are cool. I didn't know about those.
Yes, I've enjoyed those. I like the stamping feature. You know, each program, whether it's Zoom or Adobe Connect or WebEx, they each have something a little bit different. And I do like the stamping in here, some more features than some of the other ones. So good. I'm glad that you learned that today.
Good. Well, if anybody does, if there's no other questions or anything to comment on, I guess I'll wrap it up with thanking Laura for joining us, taking some time today to share her experience with us and expertise. And thank you to Scott and the events team at SiteOne Landscape Ontario for helping us pull this all together. And thanks to the task force for sharing this as an idea that we can share with our membership. So thank you all very much. You know, we're here talking about a tool that we're going to use over the next couple of weeks, but I think we can all agree that this is something that likely is going to be a hybrid version for quite some time in our lives, and something as we get better at, we might want to use more. So you know, it's a really good opportunity to embrace it. And like many other things in our business, the last 12 months have really forced us to act faster and maybe do things a couple of years sooner than we would have. And I think this online or virtual training is a very valuable tool. We can do it all times of the day and year. So I encourage you to grab a hold of it and take advantage of it.
And I'd like to thank James and Laura and SiteOne for allowing us to do this. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all. And listen, spring's upon us in the next couple of days. It's tomorrow, isn't it? So let's all be safe out there and stay healthy. Thank you.